Hello, it's me again. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Today has been very intense. I came on a little earlier before and I was talking about my epiphany of understanding how Venus is playing in my chart, since it's the ruler of my chart. And I'm a Cancer, so this is always going to be intertwined with that love, that partnership. And how I looked into my prefect year coming, and it is about partnerships. It is that community. Now, I've been feeling so much joy. I really have. And even in this moment, that joy is not gone, but I do also feel the opposite spectrum of it. The bittersweetness is probably, I have to say it that way for the lack of words. That bitterness, I tasted the sweet and now I can feel the bitterness. Uranus is in Gemini, which activates my second house, which is in my being. It activates my Lilith moon and all sorts, not just only internal, but my values, my home setting and stuff like that. And in conjunct with my Cancer, it is heavily linked into feelings. My thoughts run a little faster than my feelings sometimes, or vice versa. My feelings can run a little faster than my thoughts. But then I do have these quiet moments like now where they align and they are understood in real time together. I have been binge watching, shall I say. This man, his name is Dimitri Wiley, sorry. If you have the chance, look him up on Instagram and TikTok, and he calls himself a lost lover boy. I was just on his YouTube channel, going through his first podcast and second, third, and it struck me how crazy similar these plot lines are put in our lives. These mirror stories, incidences, scenarios, and scenes. In his third podcast, he was speaking about, I think it's a very hard subject for us all, but depression and how it manifests for him at that low time in his life, right? And even in that, how looking back, he's managed to see the win. And I think I spoke about this before, how showing gratitude for the smallest things, because sometimes we don't realize what we thought was a loss was actually a win in our grace, in our favor, that life is not always against us. It's more than none. It is here for us. It's in support of us. And my heart started to ache. It ached for several reasons. One, he reminds me so much of my grandfather. If you look back, you might see that I've mentioned my grandfather before. He's a very gentle soul. He rarely raised his voice for anything in any shape or form. How can I help you, Mari?
This video is one with kitty points.
Okay, you can watch that then. Sorry. My grandfather, yeah, he was a gentle soul. He never raised his voice. He was the, I wouldn't say silent type, but very gentle in nature. He didn't enjoy having to scream and shout. He'd rather speak, and he led with his heart. And I loved him a lot for that. But I also could say, while it was his strength, it was also his weakness, because there were moments where that passiveness was more detrimental than helpful, right? And ironically, when I unbiasedly look at my father, he did pick up that trait. My father, again, he isn't one to raise his voice. He has that gentle spokenness to him. In fact, it's probably more scary the more silent he got than if it was for him to actually articulate himself. And in many ways, I try to deny it. This is a trait I definitely picked up myself. My mother is a Libra. She's more of a socialite, so there is more of a presence to her. She's in comparison to my Scorpio father is the louder one of the two. Same for my grandmother. She was the firecracker. She was ironically a Cancer, but more in the Gemini ways. If anything, she was very abrasive, right? She didn't lack softness. Her softness was just Marmite. You either loved it or you hated it. Yes, baby.
No, I guess so. I heard it say the people are sponsored by Zoom.
I'm not buying you any kitty corns right now.
They're not kitty corns, they're like different kinds.
Okay.
Remember?
Right.
And it's a different type.
Either way, I'm not buying any today.
Okay.
Okay, you can go. I am on live. Alright?
Okay.
Okay. Ironically, just like my daughter, always has to be heard and seen in some way or form. My daughter is 23rd of June, so she is a Cancer as well, but she's probably more of a I'm here, show it off type of Cancer, just like my grandmother was. And honestly, just like how Dimitri is, and not in a sense of they overpower everything, but very strong presence, very mature and balanced presence. You can't help but stop and listen and hear and soak in what they have to say. Very much like my grandfather, very few words. That's like my father, very few words, but those words, they were heavy and they carried a lot behind them. Anyways, like I was saying, I had kind of, not fangirl, but been watched on these social sites that he's put up several things, and I was listening. And for me, it, first of all, was very spooky how dates that he had mentioned, for me, held pretty much same to similar significance. Like, these were dates that, I remember something significant happening to me at that point too. And that brings me back to that whole storylines being so similar, where there's people who honestly on a different side of the world to me, and they're learning lessons in forms that are very much the same format to where I've learnt those same lessons. Like, same subject, right? Different way of working it out. And it puts me in awe how now we're moving into a stage where, what's the word? People who aren't afraid to lead with their hearts are being seen for that. They're being respected. and even an inspiration to those who are searching for that same light. I want to be that. Or shall I say, I feel like me stumbling across him is Spirit's way of proving to me where I'm going. The emotional maturity, intellectual understanding, and authenticity that I am, how it will be seen and understood and heard by others. Others who may never even stand on the same side of the earth as me. I'm sitting in this space of awe because I review myself, I review my life right now. I'm in the stairway. I've mentioned this before, but this has always, since I was little, has been my biggest comfort space to be in. And I realized when I came to sit down here and I turned on the camera that the comfort I was seeking wasn't out of desperation or darkness, but familiarity, of nurturing. I have hit a sore and it stings. Not enough that I'm bleeding profusely because it's healed, but enough to be reminded that a laceration was made. Story time. Let's do that. Story time. Back, and I think I've spoken about this a lot, back in 2010, time I was about 13, 14, I felt seriously sick. It was March 2010. I ended up hospitalized, and within 7 days, I was paralyzed from the neck down. It then took me 2 years from that point to learn how to walk again without the aid of a wheelchair and just about the support of a crutches. It made me 17 going to 18. Yeah, 16, 17. When I lost my sight for the first time. I mean, I went blind. I couldn't see anything. It was no light, no images, no shapes, no nothing. I woke up and it was all dark. And that's a surreal sensation when right now my body was struggling just to feel the ground beneath my feet. I now lost the ability of sight. And I am now realizing, shall I say, I am now allowing myself to truly sit with that feeling that I was so deep in survival mode. I was so suppressed in what should have been a time of childlike wonder for me and growth. I had been chained down so hard that my body refused to function. It had been traumatized so hard, or shall I say, I was so disconnected from my feelings I was so stuck in my head of logic that I couldn't even understand why or what. The doctors couldn't understand why or what was causing my body to just give up the way it was. I was drained, I was tired. And when I was listening to Dimitri, he articulated words that really honestly summed up what I was feeling in that moment. He was saying you can't pour from an empty beaker, right? Like if you continue to pour out, eventually you get to a point where that you have nothing left to pour, right? And nobody's pouring back into you. And I've heard this analogy various times, really I have. But it struck a different chord. Because when he spoke about being 13, 14, he spoke about the first time he truly felt love and started developing his understanding of that actual sensation of what love truly meant. And that stark contrast for me was just a wow. I wouldn't say it was a blow, because that would be my ego talking. It was more of an eye-opener of how we can be on two different frequencies, two completely different frequencies in the same space, in the same existence. And that was true for the people around me. I sat in a class with 29 other children, same age as me, and we were all experiencing life at various different degrees. There was others who were learning that wonderful sensation that is love. There was some like me who was so numb to the world, who was already so drained a decade and a third, already drained where they're ready to tap out. There were some that were in between where they were lukewarm. They weren't too hot, they weren't too cold, they were just coasting through life. And we all sat in one room experiencing it all completely differently. It gave me a validation I didn't realize I needed. Because I always used to question my existence. Why was it always so hard for me at the beginning? Why didn't I get the parents I could look up and admire? Why didn't I get the family stability of non-trauma or generational trauma being passed down? Why did I have to have the struggles of being a Black woman? Not dark enough to really be considered fully Black and not light enough to be racially ambiguous, right? It's awkward chocolate in the middle. And then to top it off, I wasn't even born in the country that they say is my origin. So even going back there, they still call me an outsider. And all I want to do is find home. All I wanted was the nurturing and the softness of community, of identity. And it was denied from a very young age in many ways. And maybe it's the cancer in me speaking, but it hit home hard, enough for my body to shut down and check out and say, I can't do it. And quite literally took mental willpower. And this is not even me going into the fact that from that day, that March, to quite literally October last year, after my miscarriage, I slept, I woke up, I moved, I planned, I worked, I stressed with pain, constantly being present. There wasn't a minute or a second that I didn't feel some type of ache, burn, jab, stab, mind-numbing pulsation of pain in some crevice of my body in one way or another. And I count those years, that's 14 years. I sat in a space where the only present continuous thing for me was pain. Mind-numbing, rage-baiting pain. And this man, he spoke about how for him, he seeked that pain just to feel. And that spun me, because I had realized that for the last 14 years, I was running away from feeling. I'd felt so much that I was running away from feeling, and that made me feel even more. And it was not nice. It was not pleasant. And it's taken from October last year to now to truly just feel it and say, do you know what? Budget. I'm going to embrace the pain for it to ease. For the aches and the pains and the constant draining, and for it to ease, for me to start filling up my cup again. It sounds so bloody weird. It sounds ridiculous to say that embracing what he was running from, like we were running in two opposite directions of it, but still linked with that pain. He flourished in the feeling of being loved, of having that support. And then when depression hit for him, it was in seeking some type of sensation, while for me, when depression hit, it was in numbing it all out. But all was present was pain. And yet we both still came to the same conclusion. Let's fill our own cups. And let's understand what it is that is being felt. Let's mature in what it means to understand what is being felt. It's crazy to me, because there are so many other people out there, I'm sure, who are sitting in this same paradox. Those who hurt more because they want to feel so much less. I don't want to feel, I want to think. I just want to think and not feel. And then there's others who their redemption was in allowing themselves to feel, because all they could do was think. I don't want to think, I just want to feel. And it was that imbalance. At the end of the day, it's that imbalance between feeling and thinking. That right there was what was needed to be balanced back out. Be it through pain, or joy or numbness, so to say, pain or numbness, it was still the same outcome. It makes me have to reevaluate and reshape what I felt was home. Because when I even deep dive after, okay, fine, 2010, we lost the ability of our legs. Now, 2012, we temporarily lost the ability of our eyes and gained them back within a month or so. And you still, but in exchange, you lose your brother. Death is still around you, right? And this is my stepbrother, Sam, and he gets buried on my birthday. The day I came into existence, I had to say goodbye to his. That in itself made me want to feel so much less, because I couldn't even allow myself, without being guilty, the sensation of being upset that no one remembered my birthday. No one remembered my existence, that his death took precedence over me still surviving and being here and surviving another year. And saying it out loud, it sounds selfish, but it was justifiable, considering I had literally just come out of hospital myself. I am learning to recalibrate my body, to pick up a pen, to sit up straight, to not piss myself. And I couldn't even have the day I was born without it being some other person's tragedy. It's not fair, right? No, I didn't want to lose him, and I'm pretty sure he didn't want to die, obviously. But the way the situation was set up was, all I could do was numb myself even harder, because I was fighting between self-validation of, yeah, I did it, and grief of, damn, he's gone. And the ironic thing was, he was my biggest cheerleader as well. I was upset with the person who honestly brought me to where I was in that time, out of that darkness. He would legit stand with me and practice putting one foot in front of the other. It made me feel even more worse, right? It's just like, yo, my safe zone is also this double-edged sword of what's feeling like a slap in the face. And that's probably why I had to lose my sight when I think about it now. Because what else? I couldn't feel anymore, so I didn't want to see anything anymore. I didn't want to see all the disaster around me anymore. I didn't want to have to see it or feel it. Just shutting down sensation by sensation, right? I get to age 20. I have a second episode of losing my eyesight, but at this point, I'm not as scared or wondering or questioning as I was the first one. It's just like, okay, yeah, we're here again. I knew it was too good to be true. Of course, my body's gonna let me down once again, right? I was just going through the notions of hating the fact that my body wasn't working with me. But then when I look at life at that point, life wasn't working with me either. I had, by that point, confessed about my abuser, or should I say, abuser, mishandler, sorry. So my mother at that point, and she hadn't understood, well, I wouldn't say she didn't understand, hadn't believed me. But my brother also came out and admitted that he was being mishandled in the same format by the same person as I had. And excuse me, she now was forced to accommodate it. I won't even say believe it, just accommodate it and say, fine, if that's what really happened, well then all I can do is put you in a room with that said mishandler and my own family members who give zero ish about you and have them judge you instead. In a nutshell. Not those words, but So, of course, I don't want to see him. So my eyes gave out once again. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough of a numbing. Because he was lurking around. He was present now for birthdays. He was at weddings, right? We had to go to these family junctions. And I'm uncomfortable being in the same room as him. But it's a family function, so get over yourself, right? We're celebrating somebody else. It's not about you. Let's get to 21, which is literally, I don't even think it was really a full year. It's probably a couple months difference from losing my eyesight to now I'm having blackouts. I just lose consciousness and I start having blackouts with seizures. My body is tripping. It don't know if it wants to be awake or asleep. It's full blown giving up. I can't go any further, recede any higher into my mind than I am currently doing. And this is 21 years, 22 years of running, because feeling is hurting so much more. And then at 22, going to 23, I find myself pregnant. October. Find myself pregnant in October. And in my desperation, I guess, I scrambled for this new hope, like, maybe with this, things will be different. That and my moral compass was like, yo, I don't know how I got here, but I'm gonna trust God's plan. I'm pretty sure I used protection and all of that jazz, and I made sure that I wasn't playing reckless. I was in a relationship. I had been together for a while at that point anyway. But this is my final year of uni, and honestly, children were the least of my mind. And at that point, I didn't even want them. I did not see the appeal in being a mother at that point, especially not necessarily because I had anything against children. I don't. I think they're miracles, they're little bundles of blessings, they really are. But because the role models I had of parentship, I was not going to subject another innocent soul to this cycle, to these people. It took them less than 2 decades to destroy me. Now imagine adding another person into that equation, and then me, I don't even have enough to give to myself. What the hell am I meant to feed into this new life, right? So no, I'm good. I don't want it. If anything, it was my brother Junior, he was the one who screamed, I want a kid, I want a kid, I want a kid, I want a kid. And honestly, if you were to do a poll of our lives at that point at 22, I probably was last, if not second to last on that list. They weren't expecting children from me. They probably weren't even expecting children from my youngest, Tariq. But Junior, he was on the top of the list. Like, if anyone's gonna come home and say, hey, they have a kid now, it was gonna be Junior. So you can color me surprised when I'm driving 2 hours towards work, and this is how I know, or shall I say, why I accepted it as God's plan. It was a regular day, right? Mind you, yes, I'm still having these random blackouts at random moments that we can't find the pattern for just yet. Well, at that time, I realized now it was environments that I was in. It wasn't necessarily something had to be wrong. It was my body associated certain places and spaces as check out. No, we don't want to be here. Like, let's run before something gets worse. And ironically, it was around a lot of family members that I didn't want to be around. Yeah, so final year of uni, I've got placement. I'm driving 2 hours down towards it in central London. And I have this weird thought in my head that I've forgotten my work ID, right? I'm on the motorway, and anyone who knows the motorway, that's literally you're putting your foot down, right? So, but it's just nagging me. I'm like, I've got to check. Now, mind you, I'm a person who prepares ahead of time. I pack my bag the night before type of behavior. So for me to have thought that in that moment really was a very bizarre thought. But I pulled over. I pulled over to the hard shoulder and I reached for my bag to double check, because it was one of them ones that if I'd forgotten my ID, I wouldn't be able to get in. And now I would have to drive 2 hours back home to get it, to then drive 2 hours. And no one wants to do that, right? It's a distance within itself. So yeah, I pulled over. And as I was going to go check my bag, my mother calls. And it's not her typical, hey, just normal voice calling. She FaceTimes me. I can't tell you what she FaceTimed me for. I cannot even tell you like why that timing was so miraculous as it was in that way. I literally, as I pulled over, put myself in park, and I was reaching over for my bag, my phone rings. I answer it to tell her like, oh, yo, mom, I'm driving, like, because typically my system, my car system, you know, the smart car system, it puts it on do not disturb when you're driving, right? But I guess because my car knew I wasn't moving, it let the call come through. I again don't know how it worked, but it did. Literally, as I answered the call and I said, Mum, hi, Mum, gone. I blacked out. I blacked out and started having a seizure in the car. Next thing I know, I'm in hospital. I don't know how I got there. I don't even know how my mother knew what part of the motorway I was on. Like, she says she could see the gas station in the back, like the way my phone was on the dashboard. She could see out the width, like guesstimations. Either way, her mama bear instincts, at least for that day, they kicked in. She was like, my daughter's here. She can't hear me. Like, all I can see is that she's out cold. And they got to me. And when I woke up, it initially shook me to the core, because the realization that I could have blacked out that same way without warning while driving at 60 miles an hour. That's me done. Nah, that's me gone. And some other poor, unfortunate souls too. Ironically, that's the same day I found out I was pregnant. So she made herself known in a very spectacular way because doctors couldn't figure out what, why, how. That moment was just so bizarre. So in running their tests, they take bloods and all of that, and they realize, hold on a minute, her levels are high. Her HGCs, I think it is. Oh, it must have been because you're 8 to 9 weeks pregnant. Huh? They tell you, pregnancy symptoms show up differently for different people. And for me, it showed up in messing with my nervous system. I had this whole another human inside me, and my body didn't know. It couldn't keep on being in fight or flight mode, but it couldn't be serene either. It couldn't turn off, but it had to stay on, right? And that was the battle I had for the not even up to the full 9 months, but for the time I was pregnant with her. It didn't know if it knew it had to be stable, but it was still crashing out because it was like, I can't deal with both at the same time. It was a hellish pregnancy. I won't even put it any other way. I was so sick. I was so weak. It didn't help that my mother was always constantly reminding me, well, this is how I was with you. And you're giving birth to yourself. And see, now you feel how I felt when I was having you. It was a bit like, ha ha ha, you deserve this. Which, honestly, till this day, I don't quite understand why. I don't think I want to be fair, because it's just not a mentality I would ever want to brag about it. If my daughter was experiencing the same thing I did with her, But I guess that's where I'm different. And that's why those moments cut deeper for me. Because of my empathy and my sympathy towards tragedy, towards pain and suffering. I say it always, the type of neurological pain I was in, I wouldn't even wish it on my worst enemy. Like, there may be people who were on fire that I wouldn't spit on, don't get it twisted, but not that level of pain. Not that level of helplessness, and sure as hell not that level of disconnect of mind and body, like physical mind and body disconnect. And listening to him speak about how he felt guilty, not necessarily surviving his suicidal attempt, but his son not fully understanding the darkness or the numb place he was in, how if he allowed that to truly have consumed in the way it had, his son would have been deprived of him. And honestly, I understood that sentiment, because for me, despite being a hellish pregnancy, yeah, my daughter was the motivator to keep me going. Because there were, at that time for me, the very prominent thoughts of, please just let one of these blackouts just be prevalent enough that I don't ever wake up. That I'm walking down the stairs or something, and that's when I black out and I tumble and just break my neck, and that's it. It just takes me. or I seizure so hard that my brain just short circuits and I don't have to wake up again. These were the types of thoughts I was having while going through those blackouts and those seizures, going through that pain of having to walk again, to hold a pen, to speak, to act normal, because my discomfort made other people uncomfortable. And I realized that it got to a point where I embraced the pain so deeply, like my saving grace couldn't be anything short of a surprise pregnancy, a whole last human being outside of me. And that sounds so wild to say in that form or format, but I know fully well anyone as a parent who's ever looked at their child and gone, do you know what? They're never going to know what they saved us from. They're never going to fully understand how their tiny, innocent light was the only motivator we had left. Now, 7 weeks into her coming home, life's still throwing curveballs because I'm healing from the whole C-section behavior, but now I've got random sensation in my feet. It's sometimes burning, sometimes not. Like my body is recalibrating in ways that I don't quite understand. I've got postpartum depression, where I'm sitting staring into thin air for hours on end, and I'm only catching myself after those hours are gone, or I'm intently like, I was so conscious of my disconnect that I couldn't even be happy that this child was there in front of me. It felt so surreal, like, okay, I'm holding this girl in my hands and I'm like, I know I'm supposed to be feeling something, but I don't know what it is. It became a whole thing of, I know I should be doing, and I know I should be doing this, and I know what I'm thinking, right? But there's no instinctive feel towards it. And now,
I want this, but it won't let me.
I can't help you if the video doesn't work, Amari.
Why does it just keep...
Amari, calm down. If the video doesn't work, there must be something wrong with it. You can't do anything about that.
Okay.
So just find an alternative video, okay?
Okay. Just frustrating.
No, I understand that's frustrating.
Because it is Unicorn.
Yeah.
It's Unicorn Academy.
It's Unicorn Academy, I see. That can be very frustrating. No. I'm in awe of her. Now I look back and I go, how could I have been so numb to her existence, but she filled me in ways that honestly even all of my family before her existence couldn't do for me. And all she did was cry, poop herself. I was allowed to nurture something outside of myself, which allowed me to nurture me, because now I had a motivation of betterment, a motivation of, do you know what? Now I refuse to be that person. No, it was done to me. I didn't like it. I ain't doing it to someone else. Even if it was fueled by spite and anger. At first, that was something completely different to then compared to not feeling anything at all. No happy, no sad, no nothing. She was the catalyst to that, and it was driplets. Small, consistent driplets. To the point where even when her dad, her biological father, decided to cause his own drama, I didn't feel no type of way about it. I was numb to him. The only thing that allowed me to feel something, and it was very slight, and allowed me to cry even a little bit to clear out those cobwebs, was this tiny, premature, fighting for her life infant in my care, in my legal obligation, right? And I said, okay, fuck it, let's do this. And when I think from that moment of 23 to this moment of 29, right? So that's what? 6 years. 6, 7 years. I am no longer that person who was numbed out by everything. I am so much open now to crying, to feeling. And 6 years, 6, 7 years, does sound like a long yet short time at the same time, right? But this is up against 23 years of numbness. And I'm grateful for that bounce back and that acceleration, because life is showing me, it's rewarding me in ways. I can puff my chest and say that my child has never known anything but living in houses while I grew up in flats. That's an upgrade, even if it's nothing else. She's always had a bedroom to herself. She's always had a garden to herself. She didn't have to share. I did. Now don't get it twisted. Those moments living with my grandparents in that small 2-bedroom flat with me and my brothers, right? Did they have sweetness to them? Yeah. And did they also have dingy survival mode to them? Absolutely. And maybe if it was the fact that I was given the grace earlier in life to have my own space, to be able to say this was my room and my room alone, who knows, a lot of situations I was trapped in wouldn't happen. Who knows? There's ifs to everything in life, right? She has the grace to express herself and how she's feeling. Ooh, I'm so frustrated. I'm sure you heard a minute ago. Over a video, right? I know. And I'm sure there are so many other people who can tell you, if you try to disgruntle, like, what do you think you have in this life to be stressed or upset about? You don't know nothing. You're a child, right? You should be grateful in all times and ways. How dare you complain about anything, especially when you ain't paying for it? That disvalidation of their feelings in that moment, because to the parent, they don't. This is what you're complaining about. You know, watch when you got bills. There's more in life. All of that jazz and a bag of chips. But the fact that she is so comfortable to just express that within herself proves to me that I am not being the old patterns. And I might not feel it in the same way she does, because I'm still working through my numbness, right? I am the world, or should I say spirit, is reflecting back to me the type of people, because there is no way in hell, like, again, I'm going back to Dimitri. He has been posting for over a year. And before that, he had music. So he's been exposing this, a level of care and nurturing within himself on his platforms the way he does. He's not new to that game. But the fact that it's only now that can come into my reality, it's something I can now absorb, proves that I'm at a different vibration to where I was before. I couldn't stomach it then. That's why it didn't exist around me. But I can now. And him and others like him are showing up so much more on my feeds, in my reality around me. The people who even stop to speak with me and the conversations I am having. It's all the same. It's all within that vibration of feeling now, of that emotional maturity and evolution, that transformation of. And the crazy thing is, they are parents in their own rights, be it single or with a partner, typically single at the moment, but all still dreamy-eyed and in awe and in wonder of when and who their partner will be. That new fantastic chapter where life gets even more fun, where all of this dark and heaviness is finally lifted. And that's amazing. It's truly amazing. So yeah, I still cry. I still cry for that 13-year-old who had her light snuffed so hard that the only way for her to give up on life was her body to quite literally shut down. But I also pat this 29-year-old version of me who can sit here and talk about 13-year-old, 22-year-old, 25-year-old me. I say kudos for still going. Despite wanting to give up, you kept going. I wouldn't be this version of me now if I truly gave up. There was still some part of my soul that still let that light shine. And I'm proud of me for that. And honestly, you should be proud of you for that too. Because if you're still here, you're still fighting, that's so true for you too. It is so true for you as well. You didn't make it here just by luck. You just never fully gave up, no matter how dark it got. And that makes you amazing. I don't want to meet you. I don't want to be able to sit and fangirl in the inspiration of you, because you did that. You kept on existing. You kept that life light going, no matter how dark it was around you. Well done. Thank you. I am so grateful. I'm gonna sit here for a while and just think. I'll probably come on a little later again. Today with Uranus in Gemini, there's a lot of things shifting. Mentally, spiritually, physically. And I'm here to embrace it all for what it is meant to be. Because I am fully starting to see how great it's about to become. Us warriors who survived the darkness and have re-established our light. And as it grows bigger, establishing light in others. I'm excited. This is going to be wonderful. Thank you. Okay. I'll be back later. Bye.